Gotta have something for the thumbnail at the top. Hello, everyone. It's me, Derek, the Chocolate Botanist. If you're watching this in the future, I want you to comment a product that makes your botany life, your plant growing life, really cool. If you're watching this in the now, I want you to comment a plant, a product, some type of technology, some type of chemical or something that you use that is touching you. Okay, we got so many people coming in. Hey, not the real Kevin. Hey, Miss Hello Kitty Cat. Hey, Katrina the Gardener, Latinx with plants. El Hawaii, Mia Triv. Oh, y'all really came in today. Look at me doing this early. I hope y'all are doing beautiful again. Hey, Hank A. Leonard. I used to work with some Canadians and they would be like, Leonard. Again, if you are watching this, hey, Luna. Luna, I know you're like this here. You're not saying this because you are a white, but I know you're thinking this. This here man did not, I was going to say Negro, I was going to say some other stuff. This here man did not put our stuff up yet. He will. He will. I have been juggling cats since you all last saw me. So please tune in. We're going to have Mr. Plant Geek here. This, The More You Grow, has been yet evolving. This series I'm doing, some of the series I'm doing have been evolving as I've been landing into other things and doing some other stuff that just popped up in the old life. I thank God for it, but my God, I never thought I would be this busy and actually people really coming through and doing what they say they would do. I'm really grateful for that. But Luna, for those of you who didn't see it on the YouTube, Luna is a grower of a certain herbaceous perennial that most of us enjoy, right? You may have smoked it, you may have eaten it, the butters, the raisins, or any of that stuff, right? And she is a phenomenal resource of information, including her line of skunk lines. She would have to type it in the comments. Hey, the biologists in. Hey, AD, for real. So I'm waiting on my guest to come in. He is coming in all the way from the UK. So it is a beautiful time to see him. And I just got a request from him. We're going to go ahead and bring him up. Okay, so y'all be sure. Okay. I love Arbor. Mike, I accepted you. Hey, Sabrina, I accepted you, Mike. I pressed accept twice. There we go.
Hey man,
Hey
how's it
there.
going?
I am good. How are you? Look at you all smiling and giddy.
What?
I love that for
Oh,
you.
thank you. I love that
Ah,
you when we were trying to work out what time it was and you thought it might be Monday. It's still Sunday here, you know.
it is. You know, time zones and everything throw me for a loop. I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. Especially when I was like, okay, 4 o'clock. So those of you who don't know, The More You Grow is a show where I connect you all with legitimate people who know something about growing plants. There's so much BS on the internet, and the only
Yeah.
BS we should be getting is BS that is related to somebody's manure. But we not get people like Mike who are not in this country, who are not in this continent. I then have to be like, oh my God, what time is it where you are?
It's Sunday 9 p.m. So
My,
yeah.
my God. And it's
Cool.
Sunday, 4 p.m. here. So I'm like, it threw me for a loop, all the different things. But we're not talking about that here today. We have Mike here, who is a knowledgeable source of products when it comes to the botanical world. Those of you, hey there, Sue the Scholar.
Right?
One of those of you who are like, I grow plants and I want to know what they to use or what I should use or what people use in an industrial world, right? I know a
Hmm.
lot of things, right? I know several things, but we're gonna just have a light conversation, me and this
Of course.
Michael, about just some products to use. Just again, throw some stuff in the comments which you're seeing this, and we're just gonna talk. So, Mike, please, real quick before we get started, what is this growing behind you?
What's behind me? Oh, they're not necessarily super happy, but I always have lots of big plants because they
Mm-hmm.
die more slowly, which is always nice. Because I'm quite often traveling, so I'm like bigger plants look after themselves a bit more. So it's a kind of melange of like a palm. Palms are never happy for long. A weeping fig, and then very strangely an oleander, which is really an outdoor plant. But I thought, let's try it.
Wow.
I love an experiment. So
I love an experiment too. And
yeah,
y'all see how he did like a little a little just, stomp, a little comp on the people, a little go on the people. He said, I'm constantly traveling.
Yeah.
So I can't keep plants like the rest of you homebodies because I'm out and about speaking and
Stop.
stuff. You see how he took it up to a whole nother level. Y'all didn't catch that. He threw that in there real quick. You didn't catch that. So this is a great thing. I love these plants behind you. So I quickly, we just always talk about like what got you into plants, and
Mm.
then we're gonna talk about some products you think that are cool, some experiences you've experienced, and then we're gonna go from there. So what brought you into this botanical world, Mike?
Yeah, it was really like I think it was really my grandparents. They were growing loads of plants when I was young. Dahlias, chrysanthemums. They had a really big garden. They were selling at the local market.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized at a young age that I love plants, but I started selling plants as well. And I realized that I really enjoyed money as well as plants. So I was making all my own pocket money. You know, my parents didn't support me at all when I was a kid. I was like making all my own profits on at the local market or like making my own cuttings. And yeah, so I really couldn't have imagined doing any other career really. It was really my vocation, I would say. Yeah.
Wow,
I
that's
don't know if I can. I'm no good at anything else. So,
that look to make money being a plant person, you have to be good at something. Because a lot of
Yeah,
us
true.
don't make,
Yeah,
a
I
lot
guess
of us
so.
don't, making money.
Mm,
Plants is kind of a poor industry to a certain extent, unless you are
mm,
discovering the plants, unless you are a big time seller or a big time product person. If you're a plant biologist or something or a
mm.
horticulturalist, you're sometimes left amok in the money world. So the fact that you can do it and keep doing it is stupendous.
I think, well, my main motivation is to enjoy what I'm doing. Like, kind of like the money comes like, maybe third or fourth priority, really. And
Mm.
when you enjoy what you do, it comes quite naturally. So, yeah, it's fun.
We
Yeah.
love that. I'm having some technical difficulties because one of my stands
Ah, that's
broke.
cool, man.
Yeah, it is broken here. I got this stand some years ago, and you would think the $70 I put into this thing would like actually make it worth something. But we're gonna keep going. There we go. Go on stuff. I fixed it. So you started making your own pocket money. You did it as a place of support, as a place of plenty. Plants were a place of plenty for you. So jump into the product world. Me and you talked a little bit about some of the cool products and the cool
Yeah.
things you see that you have seen in your world, not just on the internet, but in your botanical world.
Hmm.
Again, those of you ask your questions at the bottom. We'll come back to the one I've seen at the top. Tell us about some of these products you've run into and how you got into that, into getting that experience.
Yeah, yeah, I would say, first of all, to kind of explain my career, I guess, everyone always thinks, oh, is he a gardener or is he a garden designer or whatever? But I realized only in the last few months what I really am.
Tell us.
And that is a plant promoter. I'm
Oh,
promoting plants because I'm really promoting plants at the varietal level. So I'm not really telling people how to prune wisteria
uh-huh.
or how to water their iris.
Hmm.
I'm really showing people new plants and plants that perform better or that solve problems in the garden. So this is really because when I was 18, I was really lucky to get a job with Thompson and Morgan, which is a mail order company in the UK selling
Okay.
I don't know, turnover of 40 million selling plants to consumers. And I worked there for about 18 years doing the new product development. So I was bringing in the new varieties, writing the copy, taking the photos, and then starting to go on TV to promote those as well. So then that's where I started getting into the PR and media world. And now I work with a lot of kind of breeding companies across Europe to promote their plants. And so that is where I do see all these new cutting edge plants and kind of help to develop these new concepts as well. So yeah.
Wow. So you need to brand that plant promoter, as Sabrina Wilhelm said,
Yeah.
plant dealer. You are
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
doing that.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. So like one of
Wow.
the one of the main products I worked on, probably the most famous one over the years, has been like the grafts in the Solanaceae family. So
Okay.
tomatoes, potatoes, capsicum, peppers, and we released a Tom Tato, which was it was called Ketchup and Fries in the US, which is a much better name than Tom Tato. And it's basically tomato on the top, potato on the bottom, because you can graft these two families together. They're compatible. And you can even do it at home on a really, really amateur level. You can just, I did one a couple of years ago and I just cut the top off a potato plant, top off a tomato, and then sellotape them together just with some tape, and it works. It's amazing. So that was the first one. We then did egg and chips plant, which was eggplant on the top, potato on the bottom. So kind of novelties, and it was really in the early days of social media, like about 10 years ago, when like it started to be like younger people and teenagers started to get involved with plants and excited. And then, they were getting excited about the tomtato, which they wouldn't get excited about new geraniums or fuchsias. It wasn't the time then. And so that's where I started to use social media to talk about new plants and to share my love of plants with everyone as well.
Wow, I am number one astonished. I remember hearing about the Tom Tato some years
Really?
back,
Wow.
but because it was the people were talking about it and they referenced an episode of The Simpsons where they
Okay.
did tobacco, which was a tomato
Oh,
that
no
had like the
way.
nicotine level of a tobacco plant in the Simpsons cartoon, and it was like
Oh,
this addictive thing. It was something else. But that is amazing to me. The second part that's amazing to me is, y'all, as a North Carolinian, I listen to him talk and I'm like, he's just saying these words so amazingly.
uh-huh.
Can you tell us what this Tom Tato was made of again, the two plants?
Tomato and potato.
Tomato and potato. I'm gonna say it like that from
Sure.
now on.
I just,
Tomato,
but you're in North Carolina.
I am.
I'm going to be coming there in October
Okay.
because I'm speaking in South Carolina in Charleston at the Bloom Festival,
Okay.
and my friend lives in Charlotte, so I'm going to fly into Charlotte, and we're going to drive down together to Charleston.
Look, when you
So I
get
might see you
into
in
Charlotte,
October.
when you get into Charlotte and you either in the Charlottes or depending on because I'm starting a new job soon. Depending on
Okay.
what day of the week this is, I can either drive down to Charleston or I can go meet y'all up in Charlotte. Charlotte's like a couple of hours from me, so just let me know.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm speaking there on I can't remember what it is, 16th, 17th of October or something
Yeah, just get
at the festival.
we'll
Yeah,
we'll
that's cool.
we'll plan this out because we want to make sure you can announce that too at the end. So y'all make sure y'all do this. So we had a couple of questions come in.
Yeah,
These questions
sure.
again, this is your chance, your opportunity, party people, as we're live now, to ask this man, Mr. Plant Geek, your questions. I met background before I go into these questions. Mr. Plant Geek at GardenCom
Hmm.
about 2 or 3 years ago. I remember they invited me to come, and the people of GardenCom were like, "Mr. Plant Geek is here." I said, "Mr. Plant Geek." They said, "Yes." I think I might have been following you at that point. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but the people was like, "You gotta meet him, Mike Perry." And I walked through him. I tried to get close to him, but he had waves of people around him. The older
Stop.
ladies, they loved him. They was surrounding him, smelling like white diamond and some other. If you think of like an old woman perfume, an older woman perfume, it's just all of that in the air. And I was trying to distract them by saying designing women over there. It did not work because they knew them designing women wasn't over there. But I met him and he was so phenomenal. We've connected. And again, I'm grateful to have him here. So the question we got up here is, do you find that promotion or marketing of native plant species more difficult? Do you find it's more difficult? Is that something you do?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I know you guys have really focused on native plants, and
Hmm.
we generally don't have the same focus, but we're into wildflowers. We see the importance of that, but our focus is probably more across plants for pollinators, which can include native plants, for example.
Hmm.
But we've got there's a famous garden called Great Dixter, which is just in the south of England, and they did some studies because they actually have a lot of diverse species on site. And they actually found that kind of like, non-native things were actually performing really well for getting stuff in. And so generally some of the advice is to have a good balance. Like I feel like it's people are not like, feeling the pressure to have a fully native garden, but having that balance across all the different types and genus and species. So yeah, is it difficult to promote? I would say no. People are open to it, but it's a little bit broader than just native. It's kind of like promoting to pollinators and plants that are good for the garden overall, regardless of where they're from. So that is kind of the focus, I would say.
Love
And
that. I love that.
probably yeah, and the
You go ahead.
added to that, kind of with lawns, where I think you're seeing with lawns that people are letting the lawns grow and have different types of lawn that are good for pollinators. We're definitely seeing that, and at the moment we're in No Mow May. I don't know if you have that as well, where people are encouraged not to mow their lawns and let it go a bit longer in order to then have the wildflowers and the pollinators. So that has become a really nice big movement, actually, because I think the vision of a garden in the UK is always one that is really manicured. And like that is when you're managing a garden rather than allowing it to kind of like, be good for nature as well. And I feel like it's changing very slowly. People are kind of realizing that, the garden is for yourself, but also for nature at the same time.
I love that viewpoint. I
Mm,
love that viewpoint. I feel like
yeah.
I zoomed in somehow to myself, but I don't know how I did that. So that is beautiful. We love that. Second question was, do you have a favorite at home plant? A favorite home plant?
Uh, as in houseplant,
Yeah, sure. Yeah, they said home,
I'll answer
but I
both.
guess let's do indoor or
Yeah.
outdoor. Yeah.
I haven't got them here now because they're out of flower, but I don't know if you ever heard of Pleone. It's like a little miniature orchid. You can grow it on
Mm-hmm.
the windowsill. It's so easy. You grow the bulb and it literally sprouts within a few days
Uh-huh.
and it's in flower within about 2 weeks. And it is the brightest pink color ever. And I was growing some of those just on my dining table a few weeks ago and they were beautiful. So that was my favorite house plant of the last few weeks. My favorite plant is really, it's an iris because it always reminds me of my grandma,
Oh.
and I remember painting one on a stone for her when I was young. I also think it's a beautiful genus of plants because there's one for every season, there's
Mm.
one for every climate, there's one every color of the rainbow, and this one's a bearded iris, the kind of like the Germanica type. But yeah, I think iris are a really, really cool family. So that would be my favorite outdoor plant.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Irises, I do got an appreciation for irises. I bought some at a plant sale recently.
Ah.
And one of mine, it's a variegated iris. I can't remember the species name right now,
Mm.
but it is not liking where I have it because it is going
No.
down and going down quick.
Mhm.
So I'm like, you know what? I feel like it's just too much light, so I need to like move it and kind of hide it for the time being
Uh,
until it can recuperate and recover. So again, for those of you tuning in, we have Mr. Plant Geek here, Michael Perry, who is here to talk to us about different products, different things he's seen, different plants he has helped to promote, plants that you all see, these different varieties. Somebody has to tell you about them. You could hopefully just find out just naturally, but there's somebody whose job is to make sure that other garden centers and plant places figure out where they are, in addition to just technology in general
mm,
that the plant people are using in order to make their lives easier. So my question for you now is: we talked about these different varieties.
mhm,
With your exhibition, your ability to go into these green spaces, these green companies, and to see what the people are using. What are some like stunning, mind-blowing, impactful things you've seen
mm,
in these different, greenhouses or farms? It could be they use a certain type of fertilizer that makes the plants do a happy dance. They
mm,
use this technology that can like see everything with a drone. Like
mm.
talk a little or a lot, however you feel about that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'll probably skip around a lot, just kind of like, oh, I remember that, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, go
The
for it.
first one I would say is kind of like there's a really, really interesting company in the Netherlands that I've visited called Koppert Cress. And like we grow cress and mustard and microgreens have become very popular in the last few
Mhm.
years. But they have a range of about 50 different microgreens. And some of them are really innovative because one of the microgreens they do is Tuna sinensis, which is the mahogany tree, basically harvested as a microgreen, and it tastes of beef. It is really beautiful because the mahogany tree is quite known for the leaves smelling of beef a little bit, but as a sprout seed, it's really, really intriguing. So, like to learn about all these different microgreens, they've also got sweet microgreens. So, like you probably know it's a native plant for you guys, but agastache
Okay.
it can be grown as a microgreen and it tastes sweet, so you can have it on top of desserts. So it's really interesting that industry where there's these really different flavors and edible flowers. Like we always think edible flowers are just a bit silly and like a garnish, but there's like vitamins in pansies, for example, vitamins A and C. Edible flowers of feijoa, the pineapple guava, are really they're almost like a fruit in themselves. They're crunchy, they're succulent, they're fragrant. They're really cool. And then also at Copper Crest, they are growing the first European crop of vanilla as well. which is really interesting. We walked in the greenhouse that is top secret, and they're growing like beans. You know, because vanilla obviously is an orchid that grows beans, but they're growing them up. It looks like you're walking into a bean like nursery. It's phenomenal, and they're doing it by hand, and it's like the pollination needs to be done by hand because it's really really precise. The flowers are only open for a few hours in the morning, so they kind of have the staff in there at these really really intense times, and they manage with the different climate control and the lights to actually have the first commercial crop of vanilla in Europe as well, which is really, really cool. The
Wow.
stuff they do in the Netherlands is so, I probably won't talk to you about any English developments because it's all happens in the Netherlands, honestly. And I think because as a nation, they're really entrepreneurial, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't just indulge in a problem, they always solve problems. And I see this with all of those companies, and also something they do that is, I went to a museum there in the Netherlands. There's an area called Westland where most of the growing started. They started growing grapes about I guess about 100 years ago now, and it soon
Mm-hmm.
became they were growing vegetables. They started to then grow under glass. A lot of those nurseries then started to grow flowering pot plants, and then kind of diversified into different crops. And what they do, like a lot of them will grow just one crop, but really well, and really get to know that crop. And they'll be experts in the world at that crop. But something that is really refreshing that they do, and I don't know how you feel about how that would happen in US, like nursery culture, but
Mm-hmm.
they share ideas with each other. They have cooperatives. They will walk into each other's glass houses and advise them. It's like, oh, we found that this temperature is better. We found that this lighting works well. And you would not see that sort of cooperation in the UK, but they really have like built in this kind of group think, which I think is really remarkable as well. And so all those little tips being kind of like added in here and there, and it's really, really fascinating. I love it.
What now? You number one, the people were just stunned at you talking about the vanilla, the
Yeah.
microgreens, and all of that jazz. The thing that amazed me about the vanilla is somebody mentioned in the comments,
Mm.
vanilla production has been hit by the hurricanes hitting Madagascar, but especially with what the people of Madagascar go through to produce these vanilla beans, to get some sort of
Mm.
research, some sort of knowledge done that could hopefully be shipped back to those people would be phenomenal.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
just a quick
Yeah.
ethnobotany lesson.
Mm.
I have like vanilla. It's behind me in
Oh,
my
cool.
greenhouse here. I have a variegated one. If I would, it would take me forever to stand up and get it. But
Yeah.
vanilla is pollinated by hand with a technique that was discovered by an enslaved 12-year-old that we still use
Mm-hmm.
to this day.
Wow.
His name was Edmund Albius. And he
Yeah.
discovered it, the little switch motion he basically did with a blade of grass. He did the pollination. He taught other enslaved people and racists, read the term racist or slave masters. And that ended up being how we do all of that today. There was a German botanist who also had a method, but it wasn't as
Yeah.
precise and as sure thing as what Edmund did. So all of
Oh,
the vanilla you
wow. That
all
is
ever
great
eat,
intel. Wow.
you know,
Cool.
I got a class, a lecture I do about it. I got an outfit I had that goes with it. Picture
Yeah.
of Edmund, picture of vanilla beans. It's amazing. But it's amazing because again, vanilla, everything you eat, all the vanilla beans you ever see are pollinated by hand.
Mm.
So it's
Yeah,
amazing. But going into
absolutely.
what you mentioned with the
Mm.
cooperation piece,
Mm.
the cooperation on that scale, and people are kind of talking about it in the comments,
Mm.
is difficult because between NDAs and companies all trying to uh, be a Pokemon master, being the best like no one
Yeah.
ever was,
Yeah. Yeah.
it would be difficult for all of us to share that information. And I feel like it would be better for us to be able to say,
Mm.
like, hey, I do this, I do that. And
Mm.
I have like friends I've reached out to where we've talked about different stuff and like even like greenhouse programming and automation. Um, and we were able to share stuff amongst each other, but that had to be
Mm-hmm.
outside of the framework of our company and
Mm-hmm.
really, unfortunately, under the rope of the NDAs that we all signed saying that we don't share nothing with nobody.
Mm. Mm-hmm. I
So
think maybe it's yeah, it's just a different way they started being entrepreneurial. I think it's a much smaller country as well, so that makes it it's not kind of regional like it would be there, I guess, as well, and just a different way of like thinking, I think. But it kind of works for them, yeah. And they really, I'm always when I'm there, something else on a really basic level, I'm jealous of their soil as well. They
Really?
have amazing soil, and it's just been bulb season. And like, because they've got this lovely sandy, really open soil. So of
Mm-hmm.
course they can grow tulip bulbs really easily. So that's why so much of that tulip kind of production is there.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just amazing. I literally did a couple of live broadcasts for QVC. What was it, last weekend, in the middle of the tulip fields. And it was amazing because we're selling to consumers like sitting in the middle of the field, and it really works. And to learn kind of like, tulip production, kind of a lot of those newer varieties are not necessarily, they grow a lot of those as annuals these days because they're so kind of like maybe highly bred, really fancy. They haven't got the energy to bloom again. So it's kind of,
Mm.
maybe that's not so sustainable, but it's kind of, as a consumer, you kind of need to start growing tulips with a different kind of mindset, in a way, almost like a bedding plant, as it
Mm.
were. So yeah, so that was really interesting. And of course, you're probably aware, but the point where they don't let the tulips, they don't want them to flower for long because they want the energy to go back in the bulb. So, they leave a lot of the tulip heads on because of tourism, because tourism is so strong for the tulips in tulip season in the Netherlands. So it's like that. I also find that fascinating that something botanical has become something so heavily touristed because, we've spent years kind of feeling like, botanical things, horticultural things are not really appreciated
Mm-hmm.
or are really unseen. But when you think of tulips in the Netherlands, it's really, people are crazy for it. They come from almost like, 40 countries around the world, and there's millions of people through these tulip fields. It's just phenomenal. It blows my mind. Yeah. I'm
It
always
is.
sad when tulip season's
Well,
over.
we see pictures of it in my classes. I've seen pictures of it.
Mm,
Other people have seen pictures of it through social media. So it's like, oh, this is just the area where you have to go to. There used to be an area in the triangle where you could go and see like acres, like at least an acre or so
mm.
of daylilies. And these
Okay,
daylilies would be different
nice.
varieties. And you could just walk around, dig a clump of daylilies, and like you say, sell in the field.
Yeah,
And this was
yeah.
the Weston Flower Farm, I believe it was called, the Daylily Farm. It was beautiful before he passed.
Oh,
And it was just something where you could do all of that type of thing too. And
uh,
even in these states here, like there's some people who will travel to watch the leaves change in
oh
different
yeah,
areas of the
leaf
state.
peeping.
Yes. So
We
it's
got
like
that
for
new
me.
phrase for it, leaf peeping. It sounds really,
So and it's
really
a,
wrong.
it does, but it's really just a thing. And for a person like me who's just like, why are you going to drive to see something? It's normal for me. I've been seeing the leaves change all my life. But
Uh,
for the people who don't, I'm like, hey, I guess that, is something
uh,
worthwhile. So that is cool to me. That is
Well,
cool to
I'll
me.
tell you, sorry, what before we move on with the daylilies, really,
Uh-huh.
really interesting because I do a lot of sell work with QVC, the shopping channel, and we literally, I had a show this morning. I've usually got a show at the weekend, and we've got a new daylily, Hemeracalis, which is called See You Tomorrow, and it is the first one that flowers more than a day as well.
Wow.
The flower, it opens over the period of about 7 days, so it actually lasts a week, and it's one of the first to do that. And it is, oh, I'll put the pictures up in my stories after this, but the color is just amazing. It opens with this kind of green and then turns into citrus, and it's
Wow.
got a nice fragrance. Not all daylilies have a good fragrance as well, but
My
I
goodness.
I find as well they're really underappreciated in the UK. Like I think you guys, you got some lovely varieties there, and
We do.
some that are too tender for the UK. But we do not know daylilies enough here, and they're such a
Mm.
tough plant as well.
They are tough. They are rigid. This is where we love them here because they've
Mm.
naturalized. And
Yeah,
especially like in parts of Carolina, you'll see on the side of highways and stuff, those of you who are like driving down 70 or 40 or
yeah.
85 or 55, or just big highways, 885, any of those, 95, you may see on the side of the road, especially as we get closer to summer, bright orange flowers of the
Oh
daylilies that
wow.
just
Oh,
taken over and have just
that's so
spread.
cool.
It is
Yeah, yeah.
amazing.
Oh,
So this is dope. We got a couple of comments that I'm going to throw into before we talk about, because I want to talk about you in QVC, and I think we'll
mm-hmm.
wrap it up there. Leaf peeping. Somebody said it sounded, sinister, and it does.
Does a little
It's
bit.
okay.
You
Um,
have to leave people with permission, of course. Yeah.
I got a peeping story that I'll tell one day. We're not going to tell it today, but I was yet a child, and I'm gonna tell it one day. The cooperation in the U.S. is considered business suicide. So don't talking back about that. Sharing
Yeah.
information makes life better for everybody as long as you don't exploit other people's ideas.
Mm.
So yeah, it's something in the U.S. It is a difficult thing to do, and I wish we did. I wish
Yeah.
we could say
Same in
like, hey,
UK, to be honest.
yeah,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like we like environmental control systems, for example. There's only so
Mm.
many that can control a space and that could actually and that companies actually use. Like there's only like maybe 4 or 5 of them. If
Mhm.
everybody could say, hey, let's get a person out to this place, everybody comes here, we all learn, fix our systems together, and get better
Mhm.
together, like the green industry could just go up. But
Mm.
instead, we're just all doing things really in silos, which sucks.
Yeah.
But again, it's just the unfortunate world we live in.
Mhm.
So, real quick, we are on our 28th-ish minute of doing this conversation. And the more you grow, because when you know better, you grow better. I have Michael Perry here, who is Mr. Plant Geek himself. I told y'all when I first met him, okay, there was a line to be able to even get close to give him a high five. It was the most
Stop.
stupendous thing in the world. The people, when I tried to get in line, there was a line like he was at the Disney Channel to see to get on one of them Disney rides. It was amazing. And again, since I met him those years ago, after I waited 3 hours in line, I have had the ability. I'm just going to keep, y'all notice the story keeps changing. I'm going to keep going up. He has been just a phenomenal resource. And again, when I see him and I watch his content and I look through his content, I see somebody who is giving you all legitimacy in the slew, in the sea of BS we have within plant
Mhm.
content.
I
So,
think what I've really enjoyed, sorry, to do, especially in the last couple of years, I've been visiting so many growers. But what I love is to show how commercial production works, because people don't imagine it on such a scale sometimes, but it needs to be on that scale in order to, be sustainable and to produce what we need. But
mhm.
also, I really love just cross questioning the growers, and very often I'll come home with tips that are really nice for home gardeners that have never been passed down to growers and gardeners, which is just fascinating sometimes. Like, oh, you'll probably ask me for an example now, but like,
Go for
I don't know, like maybe like calanchoe or something as
it.
a house
Okay.
plant. I remember I was in a nursery that grows calanchoe a couple of weeks ago, and kind of like I always see people taking new cuttings and kind of this and that, but actually I learned that the plants need a dark treatment in order to flower, similar to a
Mm.
chrysanthemum or a kind of poinsettia. So it was interesting to then become aware of that. And like when I've been in an orchid nursery in the UK, they were saying like the best temperature for phalaenopsis to go down to reflower. um what's another one recently? Tulips. In a tulip growers nursery for cut tulips, they were saying like cut the tulips again after 3 days, give them a fresh cut, and they'll last longer, things like this and stuff
Oh,
that doesn't always get passed down, so it was really, really fascinating. Yeah.
that is beautiful because I was about to ask because I forgot about that part of our conversation. I'm glad
Still.
you jumped there. I'm glad you see. This is why the people had been waiting 6 hours in line to see him because he's phenomenal.
Stop.
So when it comes to that, you've named a couple of things, and it would
Hmm.
probably be selfish and greedy of me to ask you for one more. But I
Hmm.
am selfish and I am greedy. What is one more thing that a home gardener could get? I've worked commercially in greenhouses, and there's things where I'm like, if you can take this and make this, and if you can do this and do that, this whole setup behind me is a whole thing
Hmm.
based on commercial growth. And it's
Hmm.
part of a class I do called Repurpose to Grow.
Hmm.
If you want me to come and talk about it, please do so. Hit me up. But what is one more thing that you learned going to talk to these growers, going to see these people? It could be anything that just blew your socks off.
I blew my socks off. There's actually kind of not necessarily grow, but there's a product at the moment that I'm quite impressed with. I'm like trying it at the minute. It's called Oko. It's OKO, and it's actually like a new sort of device, like a sensor that goes into a plant pot in order to, and it then works by Bluetooth and an app and this sort of thing. But feel like we've seen this many times before, but it's actually using kind of like farming technology. And so it's
Okay.
really, really an interesting transfer of kind of that type of technology getting to the consumer. And we talked about QVC shopping channel, and there's a certain brand on there, Richard Jackson's Garden, and he brings a lot of professional grade products to the consumer. So we're in the UK, we're using a kind of a lot of like we're not really using slow release fertilizer anymore. We're using controlled release, which is
Hmm.
released when the soil is warmer, kind of when the plants are in active growth, and
Okay.
certainly when it comes to maybe lawn care as well, we're starting to use kind of similar formulations that you'd use on football pitches to get that durability and that greenness and that kind of sponginess. So it's like it's a really nice movement in kind of getting better quality products and using that kind of industrial knowledge and level of it all.
That is beautiful. This OCO, because I'm curious about sensors. This is for me
Yeah.
now. Y'all can still ask your questions, but this is for me now. So I have a sensor I use. I think it's like a King Queen Ping or something like that. It's the little Bluetooth
Hmm.
temp and humidity sensor I have in
Okay.
here,
Yeah.
so I can
Yeah.
always monitor stuff. What is OCO measuring? Is it just measuring like soil salinity? Is it temp, humidity, light? All of these? What is it? What is it registering?
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't started playing with it yet, but I'm
Okay.
really, really excited to. Yeah.
Please
But
tag
what I can do
me
as
when you
well
do.
is hook you up with them because they got a Kickstarter at the moment, actually. So they're really kind of going for it in a big way. And yeah, I think it could be interesting for
Connect
sure.
me with these people, please,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah, definitely.
censors
Grow with
everybody,
Oko.
grow with Oko, censors
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
everybody,
yeah.
and I'll type that in the comments
No,
here.
no, no,
Censors
no.
everybody,
Plant. It's plant with Oko. Plant with
plant with
Oko. Yeah,
Oko,
yeah, yeah,
plant
yeah. That's it.
with
Yeah.
Oko. So censors everybody, especially for those of you who are growing at home. There's
Mm.
times where people will hit me up. I don't know if they do this to you, but they will hit me up and be like, "My plants, they look terrible. Please help me." And then they send me.
Yeah.
Sometimes they send me pictures. Sometimes they just send me a description. Then I have to ask for pictures, and then I have to say like, "What is going on? What does this look like? What did you do?" And versus me
Yeah.
going down the laundry list of questions I can ask you, or me just trying to direct you to a person to talk to that's local to you with a
Mm.
sensor and some knowledge of what your plants need, like what that
Yeah.
space entails,
Uh,
you can generally be able to quickly say, like, oh, this is what's wrong with my plants. I have an area that
mm.
I've grown plants in that when I grow plants and I have the heating pad on and the light on, it's like 30 degrees Celsius in
Mm.
that place, which is very
Mm.
hot. For those in the United States, it's roughly 90, right? 90 degrees
Yeah.
Fahrenheit. So it's super hot. And then my plants and my seedlings are like, what's going on? And they go away. So sensors
Mm.
are just dope for you to be able to know what's going on, especially when I travel. I don't travel as much as Michael, but when I
Mm.
travel, I like to be able to look and be like, okay, y'all are still good, great, and go from there. So
Mm.
that's an amazing thing. So you have talked about so many cool things. And for those of you who are just tuning in, this is
Yeah,
again
yeah.
Mike Perry,
And you
Mr.
just,
Plant Geek.
I could talk all night because you just remind me of something else when you talk about the
Go
heat.
ahead.
Um, Last week I was in one of the only frangipani crops in the
Okay.
Netherlands as well, and the greenhouse was set at like about 30 degrees, and everyone's working in there with their shirts off.
Wow.
But
Wow.
it's the only frangipani crop in the Netherlands because the skill there to have these niche crops as well is fantastic. And I've also been they grow a lot more, but like in a Lysianthus nursery, and that needs to be really warm and tropical as well. So yeah, it's really yeah, it's so. And what's oh god, there was another tip. What was it? I've lost it now. I see so many
Mm,
things, but I write about them like pretty much every week. I'm writing about a grower or a nursery on my
wow.
Substack, so I kind of
Yes.
putting that stuff out there, and where possible, I've always got kind of like a panel of kind of take home tips as well because it's so nice to connect the industry with the home gardener because they never really until the
Cannot be
days
correct.
of social media they never really got to talk to each other, and
They
it
don't.
is important for the industry to learn what the consumer needs, and the consumer, it's important for them to see how technical the industry is so they appreciate the price of plants, and realize how much goes into it as well. And very often, like sorry, I'm talking forever now, but like,
No, go
the
ahead.
other point is I think very often, you've got so many people in the chain where, you know, like the buyer is buying the plants that are then going to be sold in the garden center, and they're choosing the varieties they think the customer likes, or they're choosing the varieties that are compact and they're going to fit on the garden center bench or on the trolley and
Hmm.
transport really well. But that's often not what the consumer wants to grow. The consumer often wants something that is big and botanical and wild looking. They don't want this tiny little marigold that is, like a little soldier in the border. And so it's kind of trying to link that up and find plants that, I understand all the pressures on transport and size, but
Yeah.
you really want the ideal plant is one that, stays small when it's young and looks neat on the garden center bench, but then becomes big and buxom in the garden. Or the other
Definitely
option is like
garden.
to have another kind of movement is kind of like to have a living label, maybe, where you can sell plants that are not in flower, but you have like a living plant in the center of the bench that is in flower that shows you what it becomes almost.
Mm,
Because I find there's always a pressure to sell things in flower, and it's a bit misleading sometimes because you buy a plant in flower for outdoors and it finishes flowering once you plant it because it was at the end of the flowering period. So it's trying to get that consumer satisfaction a little bit better, really, and give them longevity and to make them feel confident about growing because the plants are going to, because the first thing they blame is themselves.
uh-huh.
And that is the worst thing about growing, isn't it? But
It
they
is.
always think, even with house plants, you probably think the same. Like people are people are trying to make these house plants grow in their homes with all these different
Hmm.
conditions. But the plants generally, they prefer to be in the rainforest. Do you know what I mean? It's like people need to cut themselves a bit of slack sometimes, I think. Like they take it very personally
They do. And
when their plant dies.
I love
Yeah.
that you mentioned that. This is another
Yeah,
reason
yeah,
why I did this, to connect the growers with
yeah.
those who are like those who are growing versus those who are trying to grow or have been growing. So again, we
Totally.
get that legitimate information. I do indoor and outdoor plants. So when most people are talking about plant influencers and they're like, okay, Derek, which one you do?
Mm,
I do both. And I do
mm.
both because I love both because I like to do too much. I like to do too much. I can't help it. So my outdoor babies, when I'm getting those people to get like an aunt, I have my aunt, she will want mums, and she's like, okay, I want the ones with all the flowers on it. And I'm like, okay, great.
Mm.
But those flowers
Yeah,
that are already open are already on their way out. So
exactly.
get the ones with the flowers that was about to open.
Yeah,
And then, well, no,
yeah,
but this one looks good now. I'm like, great, now is great, but later is better.
yeah, totally.
You
But
know,
also, that a lot of those varieties they're either selected really small, or in many instances they're treated with chemicals to keep them small, to flower when they are small. And this
mm,
is, not only, not great for the environment, but also really misleading as well to the consumer because suddenly the plant is not what they thought it was when they get it home. So yeah,
and then they're disappointed, and then
yeah,
they
yeah,
didn't plan it right. They're listening to somebody saying banana water, and the next thing you know, their plants are
yeah,
out of it. And then same with these plants behind me. Like I've told some people, like if you get a small plant, some of these small aeroids
mm,
will grow for you if you
yeah,
take care of them.
yeah,
Sometimes it
totally.
doesn't have to be 10 years. It could be a year. So
Mm,
I love that you said that because
mm,
the people need to know. And I love your idea of a living label. I don't know if that's something that you can just market and trademark, but I feel like
yeah, yeah.
that would be a
It
real
would
good
be
thing to have so
a
people can know.
lot. It would be a lot to administer, but I think it's worth it because then people could really buy plants in a less mature state, which is much better for them to establish. To
Yes,
plant something in flower is so much harder than planting something that is young and is going to establish without the stress of already being in bloom. So yeah.
my God today. So my last question for you,
Yeah.
um, actually, we've talked about the QVC world. So I
Yeah.
think that's really all the questions I have for you because I am a yabber, as the people say. I can just chit chat, chitter whack all the day long, but I know it is late there for you. So I don't want to keep you up here any
That's cool.
longer because again, I'm just enthralled. I am amazed. You are phenomenal, and you've given us such great information. Can you tell the people anything you want them to hear? Tell us about your Substack, any places you're going to be at within the United States or the UK, anything you want us to know, basically.
I would promote my Substack, which is called Grow This Not That, and this is where I write about a lot of my findings. So every week I'm doing a plants you must grow little article, which is showing the latest stuff that I found on my travels or the latest stuff that I've grown and experienced. And I also show behind the scenes of the different growers, giving those kind of insider tips as well, which is really, really fun. I like to I love to go to consumer shows, but I also love to get behind the scenes, go to trade shows, see what's coming up. Yeah, and just show as much as possible to the consumer in order to get that feedback and to show people how exciting our world is and to give people new options of things to grow. Because I find like, I don't know if you know, a lavender called Hidcoat is like a
Hmm,
really traditional one. Everyone grows it, but it's
that's what that
complete
thing is.
crap. It doesn't perform. But because it's in people's heads, it's such a brand that people still grow it. But there's so much more out there. And so I always want to show people new plants, new ways to grow plants, even in my days at Thomas Morgan, it wasn't always new species. It was new ways to grow plants we already know. I got one more thing to tell you about
Tell us.
tree lilies.
Uh-huh.
Tree lilies are big shrub lilies that grow about 6 foot in the border. These were actually a rebrand of cut flower lilies that were at the end of their lifespan. Because like a cut flower lily, like there's new varieties coming all the time, but cut flower lilies have lovely long stems, great for cutting. You know, they're very quick as well. But I was able to rebrand those as tree lilies, and for people to grow them outside, back of the border, fragrant hedge, speed, resilience, and so you can sometimes give plants a new lease of life as well. And so that is, I love it. As plant promoter is yeah, what I became somehow.
I love that. I love that. And I'm gonna say this: if there's any plants you need to promote and you need, somebody to have a seed or a cutting of, you send them my way because I can never
Sure.
say no. Especially
Yeah.
when it comes to the mint. I grown, and I know we're supposed to be wrapping up. I grew talking about new varieties. I went to my local farmers market. Well, not my local because there's several
Hmm.
closer to me, but I went to the one in Raleigh at NC State's campus, and
Hmm.
I discovered a couple of years back, just walking around looking to see what they have. I love mint. I seen a mint variety called berries and cream.
Oh yeah,
Berries,
yeah, yeah.
berries and cream. You're familiar. Berries and cream. I rub the leaves because that's what I do. I smell it. I'm like, and I fell in love with that species. And I've grown it almost every year. I need to get better at like growing them so they could actually like return the next year.
Hmm.
So I don't have to buy like $5 individuals here, there, and everywhere. But it was phenomenal. And I appreciate you for your plant promotion and the work that you do. So party people, check out Michael Perry, Mr. Plant Geeks, Substack, Grow This, Not That. Check him out on
Cool.
Instagram. He is at Mr. Is it dot plant underscore geek?
Underscore Mr.
Mr.
Underscore Plant
Underscore.
Geek.
There
Yeah.
we go. I was like, I know there's a underscore or a period. I'm mixing up apples and oranges. At Mr. Underscore Plant Geek. I tried to tell myself this before I got up here, and then my whole brain
Oh, no
just
worries, no worries.
froze. But I want y'all to be sure you check him out. He is phenomenal. And again, listening to him speak with that phenomenal accent is like watching David Attenborough and Mary Poppins talking about plants together at once. So thank you for being here. Those
Thank
of you who are
you.
getting here late, why weren't you here? Tune in. This is going to be on YouTube, so you can watch it at 2 speed. Check my
Mm-hmm.
YouTube out. Watch it on 2 speed. This video will go right to my YouTube in like 5 minutes
Mm-hmm.
because it just does that. So literally right after this ends, in 5 minutes, it'll just be there. You don't even have to worry. It'll be on my Insta or my Facebook as well. And thank you again for being here. Y'all have a great day. And remember, when you know better, you grow better. I will see y'all soon.